Greetings all. I'm Dolores Knipp, Chair of the Cedar Science Steering Committee, and on behalf of the committee, I'd like to welcome you to the Town Hall. We will be doing about a 10 to 15 minute introduction and meeting organization. Clearly, this is very different than what we had anticipated for our June 2020 meeting, but this worldwide situation is clearly putting us in a new normal. I like to think also that it's creating some opportunities, and so I'm going to highlight some of these opportunities, new ways that we might be able to interact beyond the usual confines of an in-person meeting and reach out to a very international audience, which I know is present out there in the world of virtualness. So I wanted to just make this a bit more personal and show you the pictures of our Cedar Science Steering Committee. And these individuals you can email and chat with. Most of them will be online over the course of the meeting. You can also find their emails on the Cedar wiki page. So let me just point out that yesterday we had a very active session with our students. Matt Gra and Komal Kamari did a fantastic job of getting a set of tutorials up with a lot of participation. At one point, we had over 300 participants viewing the online YouTube channel. So I'd like to give a shout out and a set of hand clips to the work that they did. Okay, we are in a new normal. So the first thing in a new normal is to let you know that this meeting, since it's virtual, is being recorded. The opportunity is that we can reshare this, and it permits us to do an interaction across and travel across time zones. So we'll take that as a plus since we can't be together in person. For a situation normal, there is a code of conduct. It has not changed much from last year. It was one that in the regular meeting last year you signed. There's no signature this time. This describes essentially expected behavior, and the opportunity here is to practice inclusion and respect. The one thing I do want to point out is that there are points of contact to report any kind of inappropriate online behavior. And I certainly hope that there isn't anything to report. There are points of contact, as I mentioned, and I would certainly want to hear about that as well. For another situation normal, as usual, we have a rotating group of Cedar Science Steering Committee members. That makes sure that we get a constant refresh on what the community is thinking about what our science thrust should be. So this will provide the community an opportunity to serve the broader community. We are rotating off two regular members, Katrina Bosart and Susan Nassel. We are rotating off Lauren Chang, who is our international rep from Taiwan, and Matthew Gra, who has served as one of our student reps, is rotating off. So we will actually need 4 new people to come on board. I'm asking for either self-nominations or nominations from your best friends for consideration to serve on the steering committee over the next 3 years. So the normal rotation tour is 3 years. For a new normal, we have a question and answer being addressed via the Slido app. I will say more about that in just a moment. There's also interactions that are going on via a Slack channel, which I'll say just a bit more about. The opportunity here, as I've had really a significant opportunity to learn in the last few days is that there are new modes of communication well beyond email that make for a much more vibrant mode of interaction that can be archived. We can go back and forth and take a look at it. And so I really encourage you to participate in that way. And something new, not normal, but in the normal course of things, is that we do have the 2021 meeting location that has been selected by CPAS, our supporting organization. So COVID permitting, you will have the opportunity to visit Colorado Springs, Colorado, and the beautiful Pikes Peak region, which some of you likely know is my home. I can assure you I had nothing to do with this, but I think it's a beautiful place. And again, COVID permitting, I think you will enjoy coming to our high mountain area. Typically, we'll have these headers and footers on our slides. I want to take this opportunity to point out that there's a very important header over on the top left, and that is the National Science Foundation and their logo. They are supporting this effort. They always have supported Cdar, but we've had to pivot, and with NSF support and CPAS support, we now have this virtual meeting that I think is an excellent opportunity to maintain the continuity of our science during these really challenging times. So thanks to both organizations. I promised a little bit of something about the meeting interaction modes. I want to highlight in particular Slido, because it is coming up as our means to do the Q&A for the NSF and NASA representatives who are going to be making their presentations. So you can go to http://slido.com, enter Cdar 2020, and you will be in. Ongoing throughout the meeting, there's the Cedar Science Slack workspace, which has been brought up by the community. There are various channels that you can participate in, and so that you're not overwhelmed with everything going on all of the time. So I would recommend joining in and becoming part of a much larger virtual family and conversation. And if you just prefer to do things the old way, you can, or to do things in a way that is at least familiar to you, you can always go to the Cedar Virtual Meeting 2020 homepage and to our meeting agenda, a few slices of which I'll be showing it momentarily. Our Cedar strategic thrusts have not changed in the last few years. We did survey last year to ask if there was anything that had been completely accomplished or anything that was really new and pressing on the horizon. And we got kind of a level of general satisfaction from the community that we were still on the right track. So given all the work that we've had to do to pivot for this COVID meeting, we have not changed anything. That said, I do want to point out that there is a workshop meeting going on headed by Astibot on Thursday morning. Cedar Science, my transitions are going crazy. Cedar Science Past and the New Decade, a long-term vision. So that is the place where we can start to explore whether or not we have new directions that we should be heading. So I highly commend that workshop on Thursday morning. Our grand challenges, we have two continuing grand challenges that are hosting workshops today, coordinated ground and space-based observations for our domain. Those are Tuesday and Wednesday afternoons with a strong emphasis on the Gold mission. Another continuing grand challenge is the multi-scale IT system dynamics. That's Wednesday morning. And we're bringing up a new grand challenge, understanding electromagnetic energy input to Earth's atmosphere. That's Thursday midday. I also want to point out that we have 2 awards that would normally have longer on the order of 40-minute time slots. It should be Martin Malinzak, will be doing a video presentation. It is already up and on the web. He is presenting the Cedar Prize Lecture, and he will also present in person next year, assuming we hold a meeting, as will Professor Robert Shunk, who will be giving the 2020, but in 2021, Distinguished Lecture. Let me just briefly say something about our Cedar virtual meeting organization. We are going forward very shortly with the Town Hall. There are highlighted presentations that the Cedar Steering Committee has invited. They are mostly to do with work that is now being accomplished based on Cedar awards or other awards within NSF that are highly relevant to Cedar. There are 23 community organized workshops through the week. You can see the schedule. Dozens of contributed video presentations and essentially virtual posters. There are 35 of those are student video presentations. There are opportunities to leave comments for the students. I really strongly encourage you to do that. We don't have the means to have a standard in-person poster presentation, and these comments are really valuable and usually very encouraging to the students. There's going to be an ongoing interaction via Slack, several channels to join. And then I want to point out to you that on Friday mid-morning, we have another workshop, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Cedar. This has been a spirited conversation going on within the Cedar Science Steering Committee. And rather than have any kind of top-down arrangement that is, so to say, preordained in terms of a statement about our needs and the vitality of Cedar related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have Susan Nossel and her team actually organizing and hosting this workshop, and I strongly encourage everyone to participate in that so that we can come up with our version of a statement that says very clearly, states very clearly what our vision and commitment is to the vitality of our community. Very quickly, you know that this meeting is virtual. That has, excuse me, allowed us to have 650 registrants from 36 countries. 2/3 are from the US. There have been approximately, yesterday, 230 students participating. We hope they continue to participate across the length of the meeting. We have a very similar broad international reputation. The participants and their origins are shown at the bottom. And then just to give you a sense of what our career distribution is, over on the right, I have a pie chart, and we're pretty nicely balanced between senior members, graduate students, and then our mid and early career. We even have some non-science participants, and hopefully a developing cadre of graduate students coming from an undergraduate pool. Finally, one more time, the Cedar meeting agenda is here, or you can just Google Cedar 2020 workshop and the meeting agenda will come up. So we are just about to transition into the meeting town hall agenda. Mike Wiltberger will be talking to us about the Geospace section update, followed immediately by Alan Liu, who's our new Nsf Program Manager for Aeronami. So the transition here will occur very quickly. I will be going not offline, but you won't be hearing me very much, as after the presentations by Mike and Alan, and then subsequently after presentations, later presentations by NASA, you'll be hearing Andy Gerard and Shasha Zhao moderating the questions being posed on Slido. So without further ado, I will hand this over to Michael for his view on Geospace Science Update.
All right, are we ready to go? All right, so yes, as Dolores said, and I'm Mike Wiltberger, thank you for the kind introduction, and welcome to all of you that are out there in the virtual world, all over the world, it seems, joining in what I think is probably the largest Cedar science meeting in the history of the community. So I look forward to a chance to give you an update and seeing how the new virtual interaction tools work to allow us to do this and then going forward. Oops. There we go. Sorry. Okay, so my rough outline of things here, I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on who is part of the team as we are going forward with this, give you a little bit of a review of what we did last year and some of the things that we've been going on to do this year, concentrating on the budgets and facilities and opportunities, and then wanted to close with returning to the importance of including broader impacts in proposals to the National Science Foundation. But before I jumped into the full agenda, there are two issues that I felt needed to be addressed. And first is the issue of the global pandemic and the COVID-19 issues. It has obviously caused a great deal of disruption and transitioning to different modes of activity. My praise and great thanks to the Cedar Science Steering Committee and the working groups that have worked tirelessly to pull together this new meeting and providing an opportunity for the interactions to go on while we deal with the travel restrictions and other issues in place because of the COVID-19 pandemic. At the National Science Foundation, we have and are remaining open for business. Much like most of the rest of the world, we have transitioned to remote work. In the government, we call that telework. So all of our staffs are working from remote locations, but we are able to keep up with the business of the foundation, mainly the evaluation of proposals and funding of new activities there. For the staff themselves, we remain in a modality where travel is restricted to mission essential activities at this point in time, and that travel restriction is in place for the foreseeable future. We don't have a definitive end date on that. And then we are also using the new virtual world for doing our panels. For the Geospace section, that actually isn't too much of a transition. We had been working pretty heavily to exploit Zoom and other web conferencing technologies to be able to do the panels, and we're continuing to do that as we go through this. Earlier on in my tenure at the foundation, we moved to a no deadline modality for all of the proposals solicitations that we're doing in the system, with a few minor exceptions. And so that modality remains in place, and you're welcome to submit new proposals at any time. Once you have your good idea and you've got it written up well, go ahead and submit that proposal and we'll put it into the evaluation process. The National Science Foundation has implemented administrative relief and other things in respect to input from the Office of Management and Budget. These slides will become available. They're all very into important Notice 146, things like no cost extensions, the ability for certain types of charges that would not have been previously allowed to be previously allowed, and to kind of do that. I'm not going to go into all of those gory details other than to say that what you can do is just Google NSF coronavirus, and that'll take you to the website, and it'll have the guidance in a link to important notice 146 that has the details that you can do that. If you have questions regarding coronavirus impacts on your research activities, reach out to me, reach out to your program officers, and if we do not know the answers, we can interact with the staff at the foundation to help you move forward with the research that you're doing. I also wanted to take a moment to address the current levels of social unrest and that have highlighted the negative impacts that racism have on our society as a whole, and actually also have significant negative impacts on our scientific enterprise. The data that we have shows that the geosciences is the least diverse of the science, technology, engineering, and math fields. And there has been very little improvement in this area over the last 40 years. So clearly this renewed attention is a moment for us to reflect and think about pathways and things that we can do to improve and address this important issue. At the National Science Foundation, we have a couple of programs and pathways that can provide some help for doing this. One is the broad NSF Includes initiative. And then within GEO, there are two opportunities, the GEO Gold, the Leadership Opportunities for Diversity, and the GeoPaths program that are designed for increasing participation at the undergraduate and graduate level that should be things that the Cedar community and the Geospace community can consider as part of the pathway of doing more to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion in our field. And this is a key point and a good starting point for moving forward on this. And I will be participating in the session on Friday, and I look forward to hearing your ideas and your thoughts as pathways that we can move forward to righting this wrong. So changing back to the topic of the Geospace section and the team and the folks that are here to help support the research and activities that you're engaged in. I remain as the head of the Geospace section, working under the direction of Anjali Banzai, who had been the division director. There are several new faces on this chart that come into play. Most notably is the appointment of Alan Liu as the Aeronami Program officer, coming to us from Embry-Riddle, where he has done a lot of work with the Andes LiDAR Observatory. I do also want to take a moment here to acknowledge that when I sent out the message about Alan's experience, I called him the manager of the Andes LiDAR Observatory, and that role is in fact filled by Fabio Vargas and the excellent work that he's doing. And I wanted to just make sure that I corrected that important oversight on my part. Alan has jumped on board as the program officer, helping us deal with a little bit of backlog of proposals and reviews. We'd hope to get a bunch of decisions out before the Cedar meeting. They're not quite done, but Alan will have more information for you and will be coming out shortly on that front. Another new face that's joining the team since the last time is Mangala Sharma. She is taking over as a permanent federal employee for the Space Weather Program. Mangala comes to us from a background where she actually worked on space weather in the State Department after doing her PhD in astronomy and astrophysics. Came to the foundation in the astronomy department in the Office of International Science of Engineering, and now coming to take over the space weather role, which we are very grateful for, because she's helping us provide guidance and insight to the CubeSat program and all the new CubeSat missions that are going on, and the challenges that they're facing in the context of the coronavirus pandemic. You will note over next to Mangala's picture is Rob Moore's picture with the Geospace Facilities detailee thing on it. Rob is coming to us from the Office of Polar Programs, where he's an IPA, and I'm blanking on Rob's university. I think it's the University of Florida. He can correct me in the question and answer section if I'm wrong on that. And why he's coming on board is to back us up during the time frame that Carrie will be out for her maternity leave. For those of you that don't know, Carrie is expecting a baby very soon. In fact, today is Carrie's last official day in the office before she heads off to maternity leave. We are excited for Carrie as she enters this new phase in life. She'll be returning after her maternity leave, but in that interim, Rob will be providing us with some additional manpower and helping out with the oversight of the facilities. The rest of the team are names and folks that you recognize. John Merriweather is continuing on as with his expertise in observations in the Aeronami space, and Lisa and Ilya remain in their roles as the magnetospheric physics and solar terrestrial research program officers. So just a few quick facts about what we were able to do in FY19 and FY20. Remember, the fiscal years for the governments go from October 1 to September 30. So Cedar kind of happens in the middle of these things. So the last full year we have information on is FY19. We are currently in FY20. Just a rough overview for the section itself. We were about $51 million last year in terms of funding that was going on there. And you see that we had pretty much a leveling off of the funding levels, with roughly about $9 million being spent in the Aeronami. If you go back and look at my previous year's chart, that was a bit higher because there were some loans that were made to fund things across the fiscal year boundary for the CubeSat solicitation, but a modest amount of growth there. We had about 116 new award actions. We have begun, or actually not begun, we've pretty much completed our transition to making the vast majority of our awards as standard grants. And so that allows us to a great deal of flexibility in a budget environment where we don't know exactly when the funds are going to arrive. And the section mortgage rate, the amount of money that needs to be committed for other things, is well under control, and we have a great deal of flexibility going forward. One quick little highlight of award selections that we made here is that we did complete the evaluation of the faculty development in space science lines, and we're able to select the 7 institutions that you see here for hosting new tenure track faculty lines in geospace sciences. The 3 on the left are focusing mainly on solar physics, and the 4 on the right are focusing on the broad field of geospace. The searches are in process and moving forward with their selections. I think that this is a great step forward in investing in our field and our ability to keep up the quality work that's going on at the universities throughout the country. Another award highlight that I did want to recognize was the extension of the award to support the management and operations of the SuperDarn Consortium, led by Microeconomy at Virginia Tech, with support from Dartmouth, Penn State, and JHU APL. As you all know, the SuperDarn radars provide information about the convection and patterns of the plasma in the polar ionosphere, and now with the extension to the mid-latitude arrays down even into lower latitudes, that can be important as we get into more dynamic storm activities that are going on. And these are part of a distributed observing system that I think, as you can see from the example here, when combined with other measurements like the total electron content thing, can tell us a bit more about how the plasma is flowing, how the system is going, and give us that aspect of the global picture that is becoming increasingly important to addressing the challenges that are part of the Cedar science community. This year, for FY20, we at the National Science Foundation have had a budget increase in overall budget of about 3%, and the increase is spread out a little bit over the research and related activities account key, which is where programs like ours reside, and then you also see that there's a reduction there in the major research and equipment facilities construction fund, but that's actually just a reflection of the variations of timing in the activities that are going on there, with facilities like DKIS finishing up on their construction phase and new projects just beginning to ramp up. We row pretty closely what our final budget levels are going to be. We don't actually have the absolute final number yet, but we are expecting to see a small, modest increase in funding levels for the section for this year, and I'll report on that, or it'll be reported on at the upcoming meetings. Quick update on the facilities that we are supporting in this era. I'm pleased to report that the AMISR rate incoherent scatter radars have remained and are fully operational during the COVID pandemic. The investments that have been made to support remote operation and remote utilization of those facilities is paying off for that and being able to keep them up and running. Hikamarka has been operating in a low power mode with some restricted with restrictions on the number of staff that are able to access that site. Millstone Hill remains offline at the moment due to restrictions on the people being able to get in and get into the facility to operate that from there. And then at Arecibo, there are social distancing measures in place that have limited the operations there, as well as the failure of the incoherent scatter radar transmitter. We are working closely with the Arecibo management team on a process to get that transmitter replaced. A few programs that I wanted to draw folks' attention to for things that are available for people to submit things to. First and foremost is the AGS postdoctoral research program, which is provides support to early career investigators to do their own independent research. This is an award that is made directly to the postdoc and provides 2 years of support with roughly 95K there. You need to identify a host institution, a host that's going to provide you with some mentorship and some guidance and a place to hang your hat when you're going to work on, and that host institution needs to provide a letter as part of the package that comes into play there. You can apply to this when you are still a graduate student, or if you have had been less than 2 years since you've completed your PhD program there. Like the other programs, like most of the other programs in the section, there are no deadlines for participation in the PRF program. If you have questions about the PRF proposals, I urge you to contact your program officers or myself, and you can also Google NSF AGS PRF for the full details of the solicitation. One of the other things I wanted to highlight was an activity that we did in partnership over this past fiscal year with NASA and other components of the National Science Foundation, most notably the physics, plasma physics program, and support from astronomy and computer science as well. Is this space weather with modifying, excuse me, yeah. It's a tongue-tying title to say, my apologies. Space weather modeling with quantified uncertainties, or SWQU, is the acronym that we have used to do this. These proposals had to address one or more of the following areas: data assimilation, evolution or propagation of uncertainties in partial differential equations, and multi-scale or multi-physics space plasma models. This solicitation had a deadline that was right around the time frame in which we were transitioning and dealing with the beginnings of the COVID-19 impact. So there was a delay that was put in place for the submission of those proposals. We have received a robust response from the community for these things. The submission, the evaluation of those proposals is well underway, and we expect to be making announcements about them shortly. Another thing that I wanted to draw your attention on into is the SWIFT initiative, the Spectrum and Wireless Innovation enabled by Future Technologies. This is a collaboration at a directorate level from engineering, SCICE, and Geo that's focusing on efforts to effectively utilize and coexist in areas where there are new wireless technologies that are coming into play in there. There was a solicitation that closed in April addressing a variety of things that come into play from transmitter design to versatile web technologies and secure utilization of spectrum. while this solicitation is passed, this area of wireless utilization and spectrum management is an area that is continuing to have support from the foundation. And so I urge you to keep an eye out for these opportunities and see where there are opportunities for collaboration, enhanced utilization of funds from outside of the traditional NSF Geospace or NSF astronomy programs. Okay, so I also wanted to make a few points here at the end about the importance of broader impacts on putting an NSF proposal together. The NSF proposal needs to have two essential criteria addressed in the intellectual merit, the science of what you're going to do, and the broader impacts, the potential to benefit society by specific desired societal outcomes there. What you include as a broader impact will depend on many factors, the size of the proposal, the duration of the award, what you're working on, your own capabilities. You have the flexibility to choose the broader impact that is the right impact for your project. But you must have a broader impact component in the proposal, and strong broader impacts increases the chances for your proposal to be successful. Among the potential areas for broader impacts that can come into play are activities that work to include the participation of women, persons with disabilities, underrepresented minorities, in the STEM enterprise. And as I discussed earlier on, this is clearly an area that needs attention and work from our community. Efforts to improve the STEM education and STEM workforce, engagement with the public, partnerships with universities and others, activities associated with national security, and increasing of economic competitiveness. And last, enhanced infrastructure for research and education. A key point here is that this is not a checklist. You don't have to go through here and check, and say that you've done every one of these things. You need to pick an area that synergizes well with what you're working on, with what your expertise is, and include those broader impacts into the proposal that you're putting forward to the foundation. And lastly, I wanted to take a moment to thank all of you that have participated in review processes for proposals that have been submitted to the panel, to the foundation over the past year, whether that was joining in a virtual panel or sending in a mail-in ad hoc review to proposals. The input that we get from you is an essential part of the process that we undertake to support the best science. And so thank you for the work that you've done. And I appreciate your willingness to say yes to the requests that are coming from the program officers for reviews for proposals that are coming into the core programs, but also for proposals that are coming into the various cross-directorate activities where the expertise of folks in our discipline is increasingly important. And with that, I believe, I'm going to wrap up with my portion of the presentation, and I will kick it over to Alan Liu, our new program officer from the Embry-Riddle University, to tell us more specific information about the Aeronami program. Alan, it's all yours.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, can you hear me? Good. Okay, is my screen sharing working? Okay. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Alan Liu. As Mike introduced, I'm a new program director for Aeronami at Nsf. Thank you for inviting us to this Cdar meeting. So I've been attending Cdar meeting for many times, but this is my first time as a NSF program director. it's really great to see so many participants, especially during this special time. And I can see that the enthusiasm for science of the Cdar community is not affected by this at all. Okay, so I came to the NSF just a few months ago, just before the pandemic start. But within the past few months, as Mike has indicated, we at NSF has been working hard to keep the proposal reviews and the awards processing going. So we have done a lot to move this forward. Here, I also like to thank my predecessor, Roman Makarovich, who have served at this position. And when he left, he has kept this program in very good shape. Okay, so today I'd like to talk about a few things that I think will be most interesting to the Cdar community. I'll first talk about the Aeronami program and the Cdar solicitation. What are the differences? I think there may be some questions on that. And then I'll highlight some things to pay attention to when you prepare proposals to NSF. And then I'll highlight some recent awards. And finally, I'll point to some funding opportunities that I hope the Cdar community can apply. Okay. So first of all, the Aeronami program at NSF is a long-standing program. As you see from the description here, it's very general. Essentially, it covers the research related to mesosphere, thermosphere, ionosphere, but it also covers research that's related to the interaction or influence into the stratosphere and the magnetosphere. Okay, so this is a very general description, and it's a long-standing program. Okay, so submission to this program is welcome anytime. There's no deadline. So Aeronami, of course, covers this very broad area of research. Cdar is a solicitation. So solicitation is used by NSF as a way to encourage proposals and the research activities in a more specific area. So as you can see from this description here, the Cdar program aims at understanding the changes at different timescales and also the energy transfer between various regions. So it's on this coupling among different layers, ionosphere, mesosphere, and so forth. Okay, and even specifies the research method, observational, theoretical, empirical models. Okay, and the one other feature of this Cdar program is that it has the Cdr database, and here we have the Cdar workshop, annual workshop. Okay, so if you look up the NSF solicitations about Cdar, you can actually find that there are a list of the solicitations that issued in the past. Every few years there are some updates. So you can see this. The requirements for the specific solicitations changes over time. Okay, so that's another difference from the Aeronami program. Okay. So the Cdar program used to have deadlines, but now, as Mike has mentioned, we removed all the deadline requirement. So the Cdar program is also accepting submission at any time, and will review them appropriately. In this sense, it's no difference from Aeronami, but the research is more focused as described here. So I hope this helps you determine when you submit proposals, whether you submit to Aeronami or the Cdar. Okay, as Mike said, our fiscal year hasn't ended yet for this fiscal 2020. But last year, we have this complete tally of the awards. These are the list of awards that Aeronami program has fully funded or partially funded together with other programs. So last year we have a little over 9 million coming out of Aeronami, which funded the Career Awards, Cdar, and the Core Aeronami project, and some others, notably 2 DAISY projects. This year, so we are still working on several proposals. They are all in different stages. But so far, we have already made some of the awards that are listed here. Okay. I want to mention again, as Mike said, the mortgage rates, which is the fraction of obligations for previous year's awards in current year is continuously decreasing. So that gives us more freedom in the future to for funding proposals. Okay, so here is an overview of this Aeronami spending over the past 10 years. What's colored here at the bottom is the core Aeronami funding. And in the middle, the yellow one is the funding that goes to Cedar proposals. And then there are rest funding that goes to many different other programs, co-funding or other programs. Okay, so as you can see that starting in 2017, the downward trend is stopped or reversed. Between 2018 and 2019, there's a big difference because of this CubeSat loan that Mike mentioned. But if you average this 2 year out, it's above 10 million. So that's probably where we are going to be here in 2020 as well. Okay. Okay. So I want to move on to about this proposal preparations. So NSF has this proposal award and the policy and procedure guide. We typically call it the PEPG. This PEPG is once in a while it's being updated with new guidelines and new requirements. A recent version just became effective at the beginning of this month. I want to highlight a few things to bring to your attention. One is that the biographical sketch and the current and pending support now require a new format that this requirement will become effective starting October 5th. Okay, so make sure you use the required format. Okay, otherwise it may cause delay in your proposal. Okay. The other thing is about the intellectual merit and the broader impact. It used to be that these two both require to be a separate section, but now intellectual merit is not. Okay, it doesn't have to be a separate section. On the broader impact side, the guideline added one more example as a broader impact, which is the use the science and technology to inform public policy. Okay. But also, again, as Mike mentioned, you don't have to do the checkbox for all the things or most of the things listed. You just need to find things that most suitable for your proposed research activities. Okay. Because we are in this Cedar workshop, I also want to mention this specific requirement for conference proposals. Okay. So you can see the 3 points listed here. The first thing is about complaint submission. Okay, so this Dolores already mentioned, and the Cedar is already doing that. And you can see that that is a specific NSF requirement. The second is for speakers recruitment. So conference proposals have to include a plan to recruit groups from underrepresented groups in science engineering. Okay. And the last part, I think many, especially scientists with young kids, will be happy to hear that NSF actually now require a conference proposal to include to identify resources for childcare or family care. Okay. So something to keep in mind for future Cedar workshop planning. Okay, so about the proposal preparation, Mike already discussed lots of details about the broader impact, and Roman last year also talked about this. I think so. You can see that this is something that NSF is really serious about. And I listed here as a strategic goal number 2 in the NSF strategic plan. And you can see that specifically listed this as part of NSF strategic goals. Okay, to have societal impact from the NSF-sponsored research. So integrating research and education, broadening participation, these are all very important aspects of proposed research activity. So do pay attention to that and make that part strong as part of your proposals to increase your chance of success. Okay. Okay, so I move on to talk about a few awards, and most notably, this Career Awards is a very prestigious award that support early career scientists. And from last year to this year, Aeronami has awarded 3 career awards, and they are listed here. Katrina Bossard is most recent winner, and Khadija Deshbandi at Embry-Riddle and Tomoko Matsuo at the University of Colorado was last year's winner. Congratulations to all. And I want to again encourage early career scientists to consider applying this career award this year. Please go to NSF website to seek more details. And you are also welcome to talk to me if you have any questions. Okay. Another this award I want to highlight is this recent DAISY Awards. So DAISY Awards were mostly funded by the Geospace Facilities Program, not Aeronami. But Aeronami participated in 2 co-funding of the 6 DAISY Awards. So here are the 6 awards. Here, the 3 awards are, there's MagStar, which is to use magnetometers to measure geomagnetic induced current. The PI is Gannon from CPI. And then there's a MIMO meteor radar, a new concept of meteor radars using multiple transmitter, multiple receivers. So the goal is to measure neutral wind in the mesosphere, lower thermosphere. The PI is Vogt from MIT. And then the third one is optical network that covers the US. Together, it's in synergy with the current Mango network. PI is Dr. Kendall from SRI. So they will deploy all-sky cameras, measure, I believe, it's a green line, and together with FPIs to study the ITM coupling. The 4th award is to continue the operation of the ion sound in low latitude. Dr. Valadares at UT Dallas is the PI. The 5th one is Dr. Friesel at University of Scranton. So this one involves the ham radio operators and is to build 2 types of personal space weather stations for ionosphere research. It's quite an innovative idea and involves citizen scientists. The 6th one is a space weather underground, which involves undergraduate and high school students develop magnetometers to study local ionosphere disturbances in New England. And Dr. Smith from University of New Hampshire is the PI. So these are our first 6 DAISY Awards. I'm excited to see these these awards cover different areas from neutral to ionosphere and involve lots of students and citizen scientists. So it's really exciting to see these awards moving forward. Okay, So finally, I want to just bring to your attention some, this funding opportunities. Mike has already mentioned this Postdoc Fellowship. This is a great opportunity for recent PhD graduates. I really like to see Aeronami getting more proposals for this fellowship. So please consider apply. The awards and this are listed here. Mike also already mentioned. And please go to NSF to find more details about this. Okay. And for students, I want to remind you that NSF had this long-standing, graduate research fellowship program. It provides a nice stipend, and it supports your education. So if you are early first year, I believe, in your graduate study, please consider apply this graduate research fellowship. Okay. Okay. So finally, as a summary, I'm very happy to see Cedar Science is being very active. It's now also moving in new directions, incorporating new technology, the data science, and with better model, better instrument, especially the much tighter integration between observations and the models through data science, machine learning, and all that new tools that are available to us. So that's great. And I want to echo Mike's comments again. The NSF is critically dependent on all the reviewers to make decisions on our proposal funding. So thank you so much for all the reviewers. And in fact, the past few months, I worked with many reviewers, and those are critically important for me to make funding decisions. So for the future, again, please volunteer or say yes when you're asked to be a reviewer, either ad hoc reviewer or on the panel. So aside from helping your peers, please note that when you provide a review, you are also shaping the science in this field. So that's an opportunity that you have to give to NSF about your opinions about the science directions. Okay, so that's also very important for the entire community. Okay, and then I also like to say, at NSF, I'm new to NSF, but I'm very much like to help and support the entire community. And through email or phone call, I can be easily reached. Don't afraid to reach out to me and talk to me. Especially maybe early career scientists haven't dealt with NSF much. Yeah, just shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to talk to you with answer any questions. And finally, I welcome you to submit more proposals. I'm happy to work more to get good proposals funded. So that's all from me. Thank you very much. And I think Mike and I and others are ready for questions.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Hello, this is, thank you. This is Dolores again. I want to make the transition, which should be actually the red mark here should be indicating that we're going to the Q&A via Slido. I also want to correct a slight faux pas, since probably not the last of my meeting, but I did not introduce Mike. You already know that he's the Geospace section head. You may not know that he is an IPA at NSF, and that when he's not IPAing, he's a senior research scientist at National Center for Atmospheric Science, High Altitude Observatory, and he is very familiar with our science. His main research area has been modeling of the magnetosphere and its interaction with the solar wind, and in particular, the coupled thermosphere-ionosphere system. So with that slightly corrected, there's one other thing that I need to address, and that is not going anywhere. Here we are. We're back to where we need to be. We're going into the Q&A via Slido, and that is where Andy and Shasha are going to take over. But before they do that, let me remind you that if you want information about the workshop link, details to email Astrid at mata@ucar.edu. This is not anything that we've shared widely, nor is it top secret. We're just trying to make sure that the information for all of these workshops goes to intended recipients so that we don't get hacked with some of the technologies that we know are out there. So if you need information, it was sent out earlier via email, but you can also quickly email Astrid and ask her for information. And with that, I will now stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to Andy and Sasha. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolores. Thank you, Mike and Alan, for giving us the NSF Geospace section update and the Aeronami Program update. We have quite a few questions from the audience via Slido. The most voted question is about a review process. So the question is, recently NASA has started to implement dual anonymous peer review for several ROSES elements. Does NSF have similar plans?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We do not currently have plans to implement dual anonymous peer review, but we are looking closely at that process. In fact, the whole AGS division had a presentation from the program officer at NASA who is implementing the dual anonymous peer review process there on how it's working for them, some of the stuff that has to be done in place both on the review side and on the submission side, so that the proposals are submitted in a way that works for dual anonymous peer review. We're looking and seeing what experiences they have at that, and we may adopt that going forward. I don't know. It's something we're looking at.
Thank you, Mike.
Next question. Given the failure of the transmitter at Arecibo, is there any comment on the long-term commitment to Arecibo going forward?
Yeah, so I'll take that one as well. Thank you again for that comment. Yes, the transmitter has failed. We have engaged with them on a process to undertake repair of the transmitter so that the facility can return to its normal operational status with the ISR. That process was slowed down by the COVID-19 pandemic and the impacts on being able to get people to the site and do travel kind of things associated with that. But we have a quote in place, or they have a quote in place for that now, and we're moving forward with that process. And I should stress that other aspects of the observatory that support our research, the optical instruments, the remote facility at Calabria remain operational, as well as the HF heater. And so there are activities and research things underway with that, and we remain committed to engaging with the observatory and helping it continue to be a part of the portfolio of observational assets that support the research in our area for the future.
Thank you, Mike. The next question is, it looks like the FY 2020 funding for Cedar is significantly decreased comparing with the previous years. Can you please clarify?
Yeah, I'll let Alan answer that one.
Okay, yes, so that's not the case. So I want to emphasize the slide I showed. The current funding for this year is the award that are already issued. Okay, so the award is the total amount will be about the same as the average of the past couple years. So there's no decrease in Cedar funding at all. yeah, so what I showed is just the award that's already made. And we are working on the rest of the proposals to issue awards.
Thank you. There's a number of questions addressing international students coming to the U.S. and some of the problems that are associated with frozen university hiring and visa restrictions. Does NSF have any comments or input as to how these issues may be addressed from the NSF side?
So with respect to visas, that's not an issue that we have responsibility or authority over within the foundation. Folks need to work with their universities or other employers to address visa-related questions. The foundation is looking closely at what kind of support is going to be needed for the university research community and the research community writ large coming out of the pandemic, and what kind of support do we need to have to help the universities get back on their feet, to help researchers recover from not being able to get at their labs over the summer kind of time frames. And that's an area that I can't give you an answer to definitively what we're going to do there yet, because we're actively looking at it, and it also depends on what kind of actions are undertaken from Congress in terms of support for those kinds of activities. But we recognize that is going to be a real impact, and we will see what we can do to help out going forward from there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. The next question is regarding conference proposals. The question is NSF funding childcare and the recruitment of minorities for conferences?
So yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah, that's a new requirement in the proposal, and the proposals are required to have a plan for how they will identify resources for child and family care, and then also what activities that they're undertaking to work on the recruitment of a broad group of participants in the conference at all levels. And so that needs to be addressed in the proposal that is going there, and will be part of the evaluation process that the proposal is subjected to.
All right, thank you. A number of graduate students are supported by NSF grants, and given the delay in research activities due to COVID-19, is the agency braced for a number of no-cost extensions, but grant extensions to support graduate students to finish off their degree requirements?
Yeah, thank you for that question, and I share and resonate with the concern of that. The important guidance that was issued in the NSF implementation of OMB guidance for that circular allowed for graduate students to continue to charge to their activities, their grants, even if they weren't necessarily able to do the exact thing that was in that proposal to carry things forward there. The important guidance memo does not specifically say that there's going to be the ability to make up these resources at the end of the time frame. This will have to be handled on a case-by-case basis. If these are concerns or issues, you need to reach out to Alan or whoever your program officer is there and see what's going to happen from that. It is a challenge here. It's going to be a challenge and a question that we're going to have to look at from the issues of balancing the important need for continuing to support the existing graduate students and activities to complete their science. And if we end up in a flat budget environment, how do we balance that on the ability to support the next generation of graduate students, the next generation of activities? And that's going to be handled on a case-by-case basis, and with what we can do to deal with the best efforts of moving the field forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is, can you provide some guidance on how to decide whether a proposal should go to the Aeronomy base or Cedar?
I'll let Alan answer that one.
Okay, yes, thank you. Yeah, that's a good question. So I try to clarify that a little bit in my presentation. But in terms of guidance, you saw that I described the Cedar is a narrower, more focused research solicitation. So if your proposal fits that description, please submit as a Cedar proposal. In terms of other programmatic related issue, there's no deadline, and pretty much that's the same as Aeronami. So there's no concern there. But I would say that if you submitted a Cdar proposal, it will be reviewed more uniformly compared with other Cdar proposals and with more focused expertise in the Cdar science. Another effect I can see is that with more Cdar proposals, that will show strong community interest for this solicitation. So that also helped the solicitation to continue in the future.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Since we've got Rob here also, some questions about logistics and activities going on in the Antarctic for the this current year, particularly with COVID-19 and Cdar Aeronami logistics associated with activities in the Antarctic. What is the current status today, and what can we plan for in terms of a field season coming up?
Okay, so this is, Andy, you broke up a little bit, or I didn't quite get the beginning of it. A question about what's the current status of activities in Antarctica? Is that what the question is?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So my understanding of the situation is that there is not going to be much, if anything, of a field season in Antarctica this year. They're very concerned about keeping Antarctica the only COVID-free continent on the planet, as you might imagine, given the situation there. The arrival of the virus on the continent would be a significant impediment to successful of those things there. So there's been a pretty significant ramp down of those kinds of activities. That, of course, has a cascade follow-on effect on impacts of subsequent investigations and seasons, and that's being addressed and evaluated right now. If you have concerns about those kinds of things, reach out to your program officer here at the foundation or me, and I can get you directed to specific kinds of answers that come into play for that.
Thank you, Mike. The next question is about travel. So the travel limitations are mentioned during the presentation, and people want to clarify whether those travel limitations are for NSF staff members or for grant recipients.
Yeah, thanks for that question, and sorry I didn't make that clear. When I was talking about the travel restrictions, those are travel restrictions for NSF personnel. NSF personnel are restricted to mission essential travel only at this point in time. As far as travel goes on NSF-funded grants, you need to follow the policies and procedures of your organization and comply with any local restrictions or issues at the site you're going to, or excuse me, where you are or where you're going to in both cases.
This is thank you, Mike. This is a two-parter question. Can international students apply for the AGS Postdoc Fellowship? And part B, can the Postdoctoral Fellowship be taken to institutions outside of the US?
So thank you for that question regarding the international participation and involvement on the AGS PRF proposals. The AGS PRFs are restricted to U.S. persons, so you have to be either, I believe, I have to double check, but I believe you have to be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident to be able to apply for the AGS PRF funds. And no, you cannot work at an international location for the AGS PRF. You have to do it at a U.S. Affiliated organization.
The last question we got is, can we still submit proposals to NSF that include using other instruments at Arecibo?
Yes, proposals that are using other instruments at Arecibo are welcome, and depending on the timeline of your proposal, we can entertain proposals that want to use the ISR, but we need to work on the timing of that, depending on when, or excuse me, not depending, so that it's aligned with when we're expecting the ISR to be operational. So before you submit the proposal like that, I urge you to reach out to Alan, and then we can go forward with it from there.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike and Alan. That's the last question we got.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you to the community. I look forward to seeing folks in upcoming sessions.
Thanks to Mike and Alan. And we amazingly ended a little bit more quickly. That's not the norm for conference behavior, but maybe that's the new normal. We have a great opportunity to take a little bit of a mid-morning break. I wish we could all share coffee together, but looks like that is not going to happen. So we will reconvene at 10:30. I will introduce Nikki Fox very briefly, and we will come back and learn about NASA updates, Q&A, and that will be followed then shortly by comments from Anthea Koster about the NASA's focused science topics and ROSES 2021. So enjoy a little bit of a coffee break, get out, get some exercise, and we will see you back at 10:30 local time. Welcome back, everyone, and I hope you had a chance to get some coffee or tea during that unscheduled break. And very shortly, we'll go to a NASA update, followed by questions questions, again moderated by Andy and Sasha. 3 pop-up announcements. Please remember to participate in the Q&A following this Nikki's presentation via Slido. You can see the code to enter at the bottom of your YouTube screen. Another announcement, the student posters. We ask that everyone who is not a student consider looking at those and commenting, and the comment period will be open for another 2 weeks since this is a virtual meeting. And one other thing, there were a couple of other questions that came in for NSF after we went off air, and I think they're pretty important questions. So our NSF colleagues have agreed to stay on and do a little further commentary with the community or answer questions after the NASA FST and LWS Rose's presentation. So with those comments made, let me just give you an introduction to Dr. Nikki Fox. Dr. Nikki Fox is the Heliophysics Division Director at the Science Mission Directorate at NASA headquarters. She worked previously at the Applied Physics Lab at Johns Hopkins, where she was the chief scientist for heliophysics and the project scientist for NASA's Parker Solar Probe. And she also served as the deputy project scientist for the Van Allen probes and the operations scientist for the International Solar Terrestrial Physics Program. So Nikki is an excellent person representing our community, and we are so very glad to have her telling us about the ways that Cdar and NASA can interact. So I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Dolores. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone, depending where you're joining us from today. Delighted to drop into the Cdar meeting. I realized it's a long time since I've actually been to a Cdar meeting, so it's nice to be able to join in even in this virtual environment. And so, you know, I know for sure that all of us are sort of struggling with how we do business in this virtual way. If I can figure out how to, there we go. So I wanted to just start by actually talking about how, you know, a little bit about how NASA as an agency has been responding to the COVID-19 crisis. All of the agency leadership really is doing a great job at monitoring the developments. We follow closely, obviously, the advice of all of our health professionals, and our number one priority is always to keep our workforce safe. Since March 17th, all of our NASA centers and facilities have been what we call a stage 3. Stage 3 is mandatory telework. And, you know, that's basically how we've been until further notice. Some of our centers have actually gone to a stage 4, which is an even more serious, you know, really the center is pretty much closed. But we have been, you know, trying to look at what it will take to get these centers open and get people back to work. We obviously do know that there will be impacts. Of course, it is very difficult to know right now what the extent of the impacts are, because we're not yet on the other side of the pandemic, and so it's hard to really know how we can recover, or how quickly we can recover, I should say. We're working with each mission and each project in detail, really based on where they are in their development process. We've looked at all of our 47 flight projects in the SMD portfolio. A lot of them are in development, very early in the development stage, so a lot of the work can still be done virtually. And things that are in integration and test are continuing as much as possible. I'm sure you're all looking forward to the upcoming launch of Perseverance, or Mars 2020, as it used to be known, later, actually next month. So we're very much looking forward to that, and very appreciative that we were able to keep that as close to schedule as possible. So we have a lot of protocols. Everything's sort of in place. We know how to work in clean rooms. But again, health and safety is everybody's highest priority. As far as the community, the bulk of the community is really, I know, focused on the roses and the research opportunities that we have. We do recognize that progress on funded research can be slower, in some cases even stopping due to this necessity to telework and therefore access to facilities and labs being very, very challenging. Plus, of course, those people who are dealing with a lot of other family obligations. So we certainly understand this potential outcome, and we're working very closely with leaders in the research community and all of our institutions to try and better mitigate any impacts and make plans for moving forward. We are being pretty lenient with late proposals. We understand that proposals often come in, it's just very challenging at this point. We obviously encourage everyone to continue to pay their graduate students, postdocs, and lab staff so we can get through this. And I do encourage you to watch the NSPIRE's email lists for all of the up-to-date changes that we have in our due dates and some of the policies. As I say, we are doing our best to really listen to the community and do our, really try and focus on making things easier for everybody. Stay updated. This is a very unprecedented situation. We recognize everyone has personal and professional challenges at this time. There are those people, really whatever your personal situation is, it is challenging. We are seeing people dealing with isolation because they're not actually able to go and be with the people they're used to being with. People who have to, take care of young children are dealing with homeschooling at the same time as trying to do their work, and of course people who are taking care of loved ones and neighbors who need that extra help. So we do recognize the stress on everybody, and we are trying to continue to keep communicating with everyone, whether it's through town halls, NSPIRE notices, or any other modes. There's a couple of websites you can continue to monitor: nasa.gov, people.nasa.gov/coronavirus, and also the Twitter feeds from our administrator, Jim Bridenstine, as well as the NASA handle. So we do really want to make sure we keep everybody updated. For heliophysics, so far for our missions and formulation, we've seen some minimal impacts, but we do know our teams are very concerned about particularly inefficiencies related to having to telework, and we are tracking those impacts as they occur. For operational, really want to give a huge shout out to our operations teams and the Deep Space Network that run all of our NASA missions. We monitor all of the mission operations. We've had so many operations centers that have had to reduce staffing. They're working under mandatory telework, and yet we are still managing to keep those going. We have seen multiple sounding rocket missions that have been postponed. We're happy to say they've been postponed, not canceled. So there are new due dates, and we continue to try to get those up and going again as soon as it's safe to do so. For research, again, pretty so far from the Heliophysics Division point of view. We've been able to do all of our panels virtually. Really a big thank you to the members of the community for really helping us do that. It is very challenging to do these panels in a virtual setting, particularly with huge time differences. And so again, really thank you to the community for your help to enable us to do this. And then, we just continue to watch all of our ability to be able to communicate and navigate our operating missions. But so far, I'm happy to say everything is working very well. I did just want to take a moment to share some thoughts on some of the recent events. It really is a time to recommit and step up our efforts against racism. I really appreciate, I did put out a community note, which also went out on social media, and I had a huge amount of people that wrote immediately asking how they could help, what there was that we could do more than just have a conversation. It's very important to create safe spaces for people to be able to share things that are going on, to be able to share experiences, concerns, and support. But we also need to do more than that. And so I really do want to just take a moment to thank all of you who've reached out with ideas for how we can step up our diversity efforts. We at the Science Mission Directorate and NASA are really, we really want to get this done. And so Thomas Zabukan, the AA head of science at NASA, is putting together a little a sort of focus group, a team that's really going to look at what we can do more than just talk about it, how we really can and do a much better job of supporting our community. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. And again, thank everybody who reached out after our community newsletter went out. All right, so just to show you some division highlights. So this is kind of the division at a glance, because I really wanted to focus more on things that are directly relevant to the Cdar community. But we do have a lot of future missions coming up. We have our interstellar mapping and acceleration probe that is going to go to the L1 point. It will do both mapping of the boundary, the heliospheric boundary. So that sort of tenuous region between the solar wind and interstellar space. So it's going to do a really great job of mapping that and also doing in situ measurements of particle acceleration. So I did note it's going to the L1 point. It will carry a couple of other missions with it, including NOAA's Space Weather Follow-On mission, which is going to be the replacement for Discover. IMAP will have real-time solar wind coming down. And we're also going to take with us a science mission and a technology demonstration mission, both in final selection process right now. So we're very excited about IMAP and its rideshare. I'm going to go into a lot more about Geospace Dynamics Constellation, but very excited. That mission is now up and running. And we have our pre-project office at Goddard and getting ready for a mission concept review this July, so coming up very soon. Parker Solar Probe, still the coolest, hottest mission under the sun, completed her 4th perihelion pass in January. That was very exciting for us. That was the first time that the footprint of the spacecraft was totally visible from Earth as she crossed through that perihelion. And so we had a wonderful support from the ground-based community, all switching on telescopes to look at the sun, doing a really nice job of sampling the solar wind once it got to the Earth. So what Parker was seeing close up, what we were seeing here at Earth a few days later. So big thank you to the support from the ground-based community. And I've just started seeing some data from that perihelion pass, and looks extremely exciting. Just last week, we completed perihelion pass number 5. Happy to say all green beacons, everything good with that spacecraft, and the solid state recorder completely filled. So looking forward to seeing that data coming down. Getting ready right now to do our 3rd Venus flyby. And so that will take us to an even closer perihelion pass for perihelion 6. So right now, her closest approach is 11.6 million miles away from the sun. She'll continue to do a few more Venus flybys until she gets to about 3.9 million miles from the sun. So looking forward to that. Lots of great papers out in Nature and AppJ already. All of the data from the first 3 orbits are also publicly available. And then Solar Orbiter launched February 9th, right before. We're really happy again to get that off the ground before all of the really big impacts from COVID-19 hit. So they also just completed their first perihelion pass last week. And so looking forward to seeing some great data, good partnership between Parker and Solar Orbiter. We did select a new mission, Sunrise. It's 6 CubeSats that are going to launch, go out into the solar wind, move apart and talk to one another and kind of form a giant radio antenna dish in the sky. So they're looking at all of the plasma waves associated with solar activity. They were selected actually the first time we did a mission selection in a totally virtual environment, and they just had their project kickoff earlier this month. The next two are 2 new SMEX missions that were selected last year. Punch, 4 spacecraft, 3 of them will kind of orbit to a certain location and then form a wide field imager, with the 4th one being a narrow focus camera. And they just passed their very, very successful system requirements review in April. And then Tracers is 2 spacecraft that are going to really focus on the Northern Hemisphere cusp region. And they are also going to carry a tech demo, which is a new form of magnetometer that is going to fly alongside a full science grade magnetometer to do a nice tech demo. And so they have just moved into phase B in April. So congratulations to all of those. This is just a look at our Heliophysics System Observatory, so you can see all of the new missions that we have. We have 20 operating missions and 6 missions in formulation right now. As many of you will be aware, we're getting ready to do mid-X step 1 selections, and so pretty soon we'll be seeing a few more names appearing on this system observatory. Some highlights: ICON, our ionospheric connection explorer that launched October 10th last year after a long and torturous road to very happy to meet, as I said. Already seeing lots of great data, lots of science results coming out. Some of them even went to the AGU. There was a lot of nice first science results at Fall AGU. Just at the bottom there, you can see the ICON team that calibrated their extreme ultraviolet instrument using the moon. And so the bright line on the left there is the emissions from the ionized helium in the solar wind, and the horizontal stripes are the result of the scanning over the moon. So nice early, that's one of the first light results from ICON. And then just wanted to flag that they actually released their scientific data from the first 8 months, and that was released on June 22nd. And they have all of their 4 instruments there. They have the mighty observations of air glow, the EUV observations looking at the daytime ionospheric data, FUV looking at both day and night air glow images, and then the ion velocity meter producing measurements of the local plasma environment. And you can see myself there with my deputy Peg Luce, Tom Immel, who's the PI, and Jeff Morrill, who is the program scientist, as we were telling ICON to please go. And so after that, we quickly renamed ICON ICAN, and now she is I Am, because she is doing wonderful, wonderful data up there in space. Gold, a mission that we launched a few months before that, and has been making observations of the American hemisphere for about 18 hours per day, pretty much with no interruptions since October of 2018. A little fun fact is Gold is about the size of a mini fridge. We stowed her away. It's actually the first NASA mission to fly as a hosted payload on a commercial spacecraft. And Gold looking at the interface of the weather of the thermosphere ionosphere rather than just its climate. A couple of Gold highlights. Here's the one on the left is the global scale image that captured a very, very big change in the thermospheric composition. And that was resulting from a sudden warming from the stratosphere. On the right, you can see our first results from the wave campaign with GOLD, where the imager was able to resolve the atmospheric gravity waves in the airglow as a periodic variation, and it's moving northward and possibly away from the southern aurora. They're going to do some future campaigns to continue to focus on gravity waves and those that are caused by hurricanes, convective storms. So lots of really great stuff from GOLD. And then here's a last example of the equatorial ionization anomaly and just what that looks like at night. So GOLD has the ability to observe both the northern and the southern crests over a wide range of longitudes, all the way from South America to North Africa. And so GOLD enables us to follow the temporal and spatial development of these individual bubbles and then compare the drifts in longitude at these two crests. So we're very excited about the partnership, particularly with GOLD and ICON, GOLD taking these wonderful hemispheric images, while ICON flying through at a lower, obviously a much lower altitude, but really doing the in situ measurements of that plasma. So one of the reasons we're particularly excited about this partnership is we're also going to be introducing OAR, which is one of our missions of opportunity that was selected in 2019. It is an atmospheric wave experiment. So all of the early stuff we're doing with GOLD is really just whetting our appetite for what we're going to do when we OAR. That is going to be flying on the International Space Station. The launch is no earlier than August of 2022. And they are actually getting ready for they're doing a combined preliminary design review and concept design review, critical design review in September, the end of this year. So excited to have OAR join us. To do a Living with a Star program update. I know Anthea is going to talk in detail about some of our focused science topics after this, so I won't spend too long. But just a reminder of our LWS missions. SDO, Van Allen, of course, recently decommissioned. Very sad to see Van Allen go, just ran out of fuel and had to be safed. So that went out of commission in the fall of last year. Barrel is our balloon payload. We've flown many, many times in support of radiation belt, actually of the radiation belt Van Allen mission, but also now just taking wonderful data, telling us what's going on from the particles that are lost from the radiation belts. Space Environments Testbed, we launched last year. It was part of the STP-2 launch. And that is really a little technology experiment that looks at the impact of the environment on the technology itself. So that's been up, taking data for a few months now. It's riding on the Air Force DSX spacecraft. I already talked about Parker Solar Probe and Solar Orbiter. And then GDC I'm going to talk about on the next slide. We have some recent and future missions that really are impacting our LWS science opportunities, really improving them. Really a lot of focus. I just wanted to focus on how much of our portfolio, is really geared to supporting the ITM community. So talked about GOLD, ICON, and OAR, and then I just wanted to flag Dynamic is a recommendation from our decadal survey as the next solar terrestrial probe, and we just had our midterm check-in, and it was certainly really amplified that the science that Dynamic will do is still of the highest priority, and so we are now looking at a way that we can fly a Dynamic-like mission. I don't think we will have the budget to support a full up SDP. So we're looking at what we can do, maybe with GDC as a partnership, providing, a couple of extra platforms that are really focused on the mission, on the measurements that Dynamic would need to be able to really close that science. So very, very excited about all of the things we have coming up in the ITM arena. For LWS science, we have these focused science topics. We've had a number of them that have really focused on ITM. The one that is in Rose's 2020 is long-term variability and predictability of the sun climate system. And the one, of course, for this, the ROSES 19 from last year was the causes and consequences of the hemispherical asymmetries in the MIT system. Also in ROSES opportunities, we have our strategic capabilities, looking at models of the global ion neutral density in the thermosphere, ionosphere, and plasmasphere. We've revised our strategic science areas, which we use as our guidelines for these particular topics. And we have our LPAG. So Anthea is one of our co-chairs, and we were delighted to welcome this year Sabrina Savage, who joined us as the other co-chair. So we're excited to see that group has already had a virtual meeting since the COVID-19 restrictions hit. And they had a town hall last week. So very excited about that. And just a quick thank you to Mark Linton for his outstanding leadership with Anthea for the last number of years. We're really focused on expanding the heliophysics community. We have a lot of recent activities that have been sponsored directly by the LWS program. One is the Frontier Development Lab, which is out at Ames. That is looking at artificial intelligence and machine learning and how we can use those to provide innovation to address and accelerate the solutions to our science. Some of the highlights they've done include managing to do synthetic data. So where we've had a sensor that's failed on a, as part of an instrument on a mission, how we can actually train the artificial intelligence programs to predict what that data would have been based on other data that was taken either on the same platform or on a neighboring one. We put a lot of investment in high computing to support the Strategic Capability Initiative. We have our summer schools, Jack Eddy Postdoc Fellowships, and LWS institutes. And these programs really providing resources necessary to train the next generation of heliophysicists. Okay, so I just want to touch on GDC before I finish. It is our next LWS mission. It will be LWS 7. It's really gearing to look at dramatically improving our understanding of the upper atmosphere and its strong variability in response to energy inputs from the sun and also from the lower atmosphere. So again, focusing on this boundary between terrestrial and space weather. We had a science definition team that convened in 2018. They delivered their report to HPAC in October of 2019. Thank you to Aaron Ridley and Alison James for their excellent leadership of this definition team. We have a pre-project office that is set up at Goddard Space Flight Center, and they are getting ready to do the mission concept review. There are many things that they're working on, refining the science requirements, supporting interagency and international discussions, and also looking at the best way really to implement the mission. So we're also targeting the end of the year to put out solicitations for instruments for that constellation. Other division activities, I notice I'm running out of time, so I won't belabor this too much, but we have launched a couple of sounding rockets early this year in support of the Grand Challenge. Sadly, we have had delays due to COVID, as I already mentioned, but we were able to launch a CubeSat, a sortie, that was designed to discover wave-like plasma perturbations in the F region. And so that spacecraft was released from the ISS in February and has been sending us some data since then. A quick look at the suborbital and the CubeSats. So you'll see everything that's kind of grayed out to the left is actually launched and has we've got the science results from that. Eunice is sitting there August, mid-August of this year. We are currently looking at what we can do to see if we can still support that launch. Shout out to Wallops, the Wallops Flight Facility and who have the responsibility for this Sounding Rocket Program Office, doing what they can to see how quickly they could get things up and running to start supporting some of our sounding rockets again. So Eunice not delayed yet, and keeping fingers crossed that we can maybe get that one off. Rideshare, I mentioned IMAP and the fact that we would be carrying some missions with us. So the Science Mission Directorate has given the Heliophysics Division the responsibility to implement rideshare for the entire directorate. And so we have a wonderful lead that we just hired, a new program executive came to us from Kennedy Space Center. We have our advisory committee, our National Academy CSSP advisory committee did a short report for us on rideshare. I know they actually had a town hall at Cedar last year, Gem and Shine also. So thank you to all of you who came and gave your ideas. We also had a focused workshop in February that was looking at how we can best now implement rideshare. You know, what is the science that is best suited to rideshare? What are those instrument types and configurations? And so we are looking forward now to putting more and more, it's really maximizing what we take to space. We don't want to have excess capability on the rockets. We are also supporting the agency's Artemis program. NASA selected 2 investigations to fly on Gateway. So that is the Lunar Gateway in support of Artemis. We have one that is our NASA Space Weather Instrument Suite. It is called Hermes, and that will go on the first module of the Gateway. And they also selected an ESA payload, which is actually called Ursa. Both Hermes and Ursa are half siblings of Artemis and Apollo. That's just a fun fact there. We will be also submitting, rather releasing a request for information to the community very soon to get inputs on what kind of space weather instruments and spacecraft should we be looking at to populate future opportunities, either to go on Gateway or just to launch as part of ride shares. What are those instruments that we would really think we can send them anywhere? They can go on any platform to any location and still do great heliophysics science. I'm going to skip over this one just to say that we'd actually have been doing a lot of work on strategic focus in the Heliophysics Division, and we have 3 key working groups that are moving forward. They've defined strategy and they're working on implementation plans for how we can better focus our efforts in space weather, how we can now modernize all of our archives to make our data really last the time. We've got missions that are now 42, 43 years old. We want to make sure those data are still fresh and usable for decades to come. And then also how we want to better embrace technology, bring technology in from outside traditional heliophysics areas to enable us to do more heliophysics science. In research, we have our DRIVE initiative that was a recommendation from the last decadal survey. We've now really embraced DRIVE, and it's now part of our RNA baseline. So we have a lot of different elements from instrument technology, low-cost access to space, more traditional guest investigators and supporting research, and a really big passion of mine, the early career investigation program, and then you can see Living with a Star and Space Weather. We just selected, or actually it was December of last year, we just finally had the kickoff for them, DRIVE Science Centers. These are very big cross-divisional, cross-institutional, cross-discipline teams that are looking at big science. Did 9 to go into our step 1s. They had their kickoff meeting last week. And we're very, very excited to see what these teams come up with in their step 1. They will be down selected in about 2 years from now, and we'll select 2 to go on through into phase 2. But congratulations to all of those PIs. Really, really great stuff in the DRIVE centers. Quick update on ROSAs. We are really focusing on high risk, high impact proposals. We want to make sure that we're actually asking PIs, if you want, you can self-identify if you think your proposal is a high risk, high impact. So we don't want things getting thrown out of competitions just because they are more risky. Often the more risky ones, you have to accept that they may not work, but often those are the ones that really have the biggest. We're introducing that. We are also doing our first test of dual anonymous. We're going to do that with our guest investigator program. So everything will be anonymized, and then we'll see, how well that works. We don't think it's going to have a huge outcome, but we don't think when people know, who the proposers are, that there'll be a big outcome at all. But we're excited about trying that with our guest investigator program. And then we have Mona Kessel, who many of you will know is our RNA lead in heliophysics, and she's been doing some great training for our new program scientists to be able to train and share best practices to make sure that all our panels are working to the best, because we know that your time is very valuable. We really appreciate it when you volunteer to be on a review panel or accept an invitation. And so we want to make sure that all our panels are run smoothly, so your time is you feel like it was worth doing it. Please do volunteer. I didn't have the big scary pointy finger like Mike had, but that doesn't mean I'm not pointing my finger at the screen right now. Please volunteer, that you are what makes our proposal review panel successful. And then finally, some headquarters updates. We've been hiring like mad. We're very, very understaffed, very overworked, which is actually a great problem to have, that we have so much work to do. We did hire 2 new program executives earlier this year, Jamie Favors and Heather Futrell. They have been doing wonderful things, and many of you will meet them in the coming years as you do new missions. We are in the process of hiring 2 more new program executives through a direct hire authority. And we are also bringing on another 2 via detail to be able to deal with all our new missions and rideshare. And then program scientists, we had a great crop of people who applied to be IPAs with us. So they are temporary assignments. You come work at headquarters for a couple of years. You still maintain your job at your institution. We are getting ready to, we've already made offers to a number and had a couple accept. I can't tell you who they are yet, but we are extremely excited about bringing them on board. And then just a note, we are hiring 3 new permanent civil servants. The job announcement for that will be released next Monday. It will be open for 5 days, so it will close on July 6th. So if you are interested in joining us as a program scientist, please, you'll find that job announcement in USA Jobs. And please take a look at it and send in your resume, because we would love to have you come and work with us at headquarters. And so I will just finish by saying it is a great time to be a heliophysicist. We think that we're definitely poised to be able to capitalize on this really amazing, almost like the golden era of heliophysics, with all of this wonderful fleet we have now and all of these new missions, our robust suborbital program, and now rideshare. We are really committed to developing our next generation of heliophysicists. We have some citizen science activities that we're getting ready to release opportunities for. We're doing great stuff with space weather. Excited about supporting exploration, and definitely leaning forward into the next generation. We're leaning forward into the next decade. And so I will stop, and if there is time, I will be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Nikki. We have time for 3 to 4 questions. And before I ask a question, I would like to thank you for emphasizing not to stop funding for graduate students or postdoc. And this is a thank you note from the students in the audience. And the first question is, the audience is very excited to see the dynamic listed as a future heliophysics mission. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the timeline of dynamic?
I would be happy to. So we realized when we looked at GDC what a tremendous partnership we could do if we were able to fly the 2 missions at the same time, because the science overlap is huge, or particularly the measurement capabilities that we can do. That we've got these a large subset, should we say, of overlapping measurements so we can really support one another. The only way I think that we can actually do it within our current funding profile is to do dynamic, really as a ride share to launch with GDC. And so now the challenge for me is trying to get the two of them to line up. We've got a plan for GDC that is getting ready to start. Probably a year after that, we'll look at what we can do with dynamic. It will be a cut down version. We absolutely know with the budget available that we could not do a full up STP mission. And so what we're looking at is doing, taking all the measurements that GDC would provide, looking at what we really need to be able to do those diurnal tide variations. What are those measurements? Putting out to the community to propose small missions that could be launched with GDC. Obviously, they need to go to a different altitude. They need to have those very focused measurements, but to try and get those two missions flying at, either at the same time or with the overlap that we can do it in a funding that we have available. So watch this space. Hopefully by AGU, I'll actually have a lot more information. As Mike already noted, we really have to wait to see what budget we're going to have and how we can best use that. But we're looking for creative ways to be able to do those diurnal tide measurements, really focused measurements, but use everything that GDC is also providing.
All right, thanks, Nikki. Will there be an Icon Gold GI, guest investigator call soon?
Yes, there will. I actually believe it is in Rose's 20. I think it's going to come out towards the end of Rose's 20, and it's actually very cutely called GG for the Gold Icon Guest Investigator. We love a good acronym in heliophysics. So it'll be a GG call, and I think it is coming out very late in this Rose's 20 call. We needed to make sure there was enough data publicly released.
Solicitation. Is that going to be a collection of instruments, or the instruments will be pre-decided and the teams will be solicited?
So it'll be very similar to what you're used to for a Living with a Star call. It is, NASA does not solicit instruments. We solicit science investigations. So there will be a list of measurements that we know we want to make in order to answer the GDC science. We could give a candidate payload that would actually be able to return those instruments, but it really is up to the community to be creative, to really offer the instruments that will make those measurements. If you put out predetermined, pre-selected instruments, you remove all the innovation and the ability for people to come up with new and creative ways of doing things. So it will be bid on, here is the science that we want, here are the science questions we want to answer with GDC, and here are the measurements that, that we need to make, and then left up to the community to propose.
Thank you, Nikki. Due to the time limit, all the other questions will be answered in a different format. And next, we're going to hear the LWS FST talks.
I'm going to do a quick introduction for Anthea. She is the current co-chair, one of the current co-chairs of the NASA Living with a Star Program Analysis Group. She's also one of the assistant directors of MIT Haystack Observatory, best known for her work in GNSS. She's a regular attendee at Cedar, and without further ado, we'll go to her presentation.
Okay, everybody, so you heard I'm Anthea Koster, and I am one of the co-chairs of this year's NASA's LPAG group, along with Sabrina Savage. But you're also going to be hearing in this talk from two other members, Cedar members of the LPAG group, and I wanted to do that so that if you know any of us, you can ask any of us questions about what you're going to hear now. So the most important thing is we're here to advertise that you have a chance to influence the focus science topics for Rose's LWS solicitations in 2021 and beyond by inputting your ideas at these two websites that I've shown here. Now you're going to see this at the end of the talk too, but these are the important things to take away. This is where you go, and the deadline is July 3rd. So very quickly, this is the outline. I probably won't go through all of it, but I am going to introduce the program analysis group. Then I'm going to hand it over to Rich Collins, who's going to talk about the brief overview of the newly revised strategic science areas. We spent a lot of time doing that last year, and you need to look at those before you suggest new focus science topics. We're going to review the ones that were solicited in 2019 and 2020, and the remaining ones that haven't been used. It may be that if you could comment on them, we could revise them and they may be better suited going forward into the future. Then I think it's Subani who's going to take over and introduce you to the website that we have set up to input these new FST ideas and comments on the remaining FSTs. We'll describe the executive committee's process for crafting the new FSTs from these inputs and give you a brief overview of what NASA does, because we don't really hand them the final FSTs. We hand them draft FSTs, and then they actually do their magic process, look at different things, and send out the final FSTs. And at the very end, there'll be a short question and answer section. So the Living with the Star Program Analysis Group, or LPAG, as you heard from Nikki, NASA likes acronyms. Really, we're the group that serves as the community-based interdisciplinary forum. So we're trying to coordinate with the community and solicit ideas from the community to really get input for the Living with the Star program objectives. So that's our goal. And the people we work with directly in the program office are Jeff Morrell, Simon Plunkett, Lika Guhatha-Kurta, and Xing Feng. As I said, I'm a co-chair along with Sabrina Savage, and the members this year are Joe Borowski, Richard Collins, Subani Dada-Barua, Heather Elliott, Martina, I can't pronounce her last name, Kiolido, Van Gogh, Brian Walsh, Shengfei Deng, Angelos Ferlitis, and Shasha Zhao. And these are the members that you're going to be hearing from. Shasha is actually one of the moderators, but we are all in the Cedar community, me and Rich and Subani and Shasha. And at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Rich.
Thanks, Anthea. So we have strategic science areas and focused science topics. I'm not going to read the whole slide. There are 10 strategic science areas that define if you want, the program for LWS Science. These were revised in December 2019 with community input. And so we're strongly advising people, if you have ideas of what LWS is or isn't, we ask you to go back and look at these and refresh how you think about LWS and how you want to interact with the program. With the development of formal space weather program at NASA, LWS, these were re-examined, these strategic science areas, to reflect that and see how the heliophysics program in general would work better and meet its science goals, given that we have a space weather program emerging at NASA as well. So as I say, there are 10 strategic science areas, and let's move to the next slide.
Oops.
So the focused science topics then derive from the strategic science areas. And so if you're suggesting a focused science topic, we ask that you reference back to a strategic science area or several strategic science areas. And these become the specific science topics that drive the announcements. And so we finalized 20 focused science topics in October 2018, and 8 of these have been used to construct the ROSES 2019 and 2020 calls. 12 FSTs remain, and we solicit comments. You can also suggest new FSTs if you so wish. And the goal of the LPAG is to distill the community input, take the community input, and form the FSTs going forward that are then sent to NASA and used in the upcoming ROSES. So this is a huge way that you as the community can impact how the actual call for proposals is put together by NASA. Go ahead, Anthea.
Sorry.
So in 2019, The 4 FSTs were the variable radiation environment to the dynamical solar and heliospheric system, fast reconnection, magnetospheric and ionospheric processes responsible for rapid geomagnetic changes, and causes and consequences of hemispherical asymmetries in the magnetosphere. And these FSTs are currently under ROSES 2019 under review for the proposals that were submitted late last year, or early this year, I should say. And then in 2020, modeling and validation of ionospheric irregularities and scintillations, understanding and predicting radiation belt loss in the coupled magnetosphere, the origin and consequences of superthermal particles that seed solar energetic particles, and long-term variability and predictability of the sun climate system. And that was the long-term variability and predictability of the sun climate system came out actually of a response for a new SSA when we were doing SSAs last year. So as I say, take a look at the SSAs very carefully because they are driving new flavors of FSTs. Thank you, Anthea. If we can go on from there. So the FSTs that are currently, that have been developed from previous years that we're looking for comments on, there are 12 of them. I'm not going to read all of them, but they cover the full breadth of what the Heliophysics program is interested in. I think people in Cedar will find things that are of interest to them. Again, I would highlight number 12 only because it comes out of a new SSA that we brought forward. And so I'm trying to highlight things that people may not expect in LWS as they think about LWS. I would also, we are having some discussion in the group about how these connect with the new drive centers, and people should think about that as well in this community. Next slide, Anthea. So finally, there also is a discussion of tools and methods, the use of data science and analytics, and one of the other things that came from the community was correcting and mitigating effects in the helioseismic and magnetic imager photospheric magnetic fields. These are not FSTs per se, and so what we're telling people is based on the input that we got from the community, if you're looking at an FST and you think data science and analytics is important, or you think there's a mission-specific element to an FST that is worth bringing forward to NASA, bringing forward to the LPAG, then we encourage you to do that. But data science and analytics is not going to be an FST in itself. And I think, Anthea, that sums up my section.
Okay, so now I turn it over to Sabani.
Hi, yes. So next slide, please. Thank you. So as Anthea mentioned earlier, now is our community's opportunity to provide input on future focused science topics. The due date's July 3rd. And just want to reiterate that, as Rich said, take a look at the strategic science areas on the community input page where you submit new ideas for potential focused science topics. There are checkboxes where you can identify which of the SSAs are relevant. You can also, at this related website, view and comment on all of the rolled over FSTs that Rich just reviewed, and provide your comments on ideas on how to strengthen them, or ways that they are newly relevant, timely, or current and worth reconsidering. Those are all welcome. So next slide, please. So this is, when you click on the first link on the previous slide, this is the input page for new ideas for focused science topics. And just to give you a sense of how we as the executive committee use these, we take all of these inputs, we aggregate them, we are kind of the blender for digesting all of the community's ideas, organizing them thematically into what are the general areas of interest. So a topic title helps us get some definition and focus. Discipline areas, you can select as many as apply. If you select other, you have an opportunity to clarify in a comment section at the end of the page. The next box is pretty important. Science goals and descriptions of what you mean in your focused science topic. What would the goals be? Why is this timely? what knowledge gaps are really urgent to fill that make this a compelling focus science topic. That's all material that we kind of think through and try to aggregate when we draft our focus science topics. Next slide, please. Then there is a number of checkboxes for how potential submissions or potential proposals to a focus science topic might successfully implement strategies for addressing the focus science questions. And so you have a number of data-driven, model theory-driven, or other investigations, and then there's a comment box where you can elaborate. Measures of success, it sort of talks about how will we have a sense of making progress on that focus science topics, how relationships can be established and tested, prediction capability, what criteria might need to be considered and devised. Next slide, please. And so this is the page where you can identify the relevance to NASA heliophysics and living with a star, specifically the strategic science areas and or the LWS 10-year vision report, the decadal surveys. And then at the end is the additional comments box, if there are any other ideas you'd like to make there. Next slide, please. And I should mention that at the end, there are optional name and affiliation. These are just for internal purposes, meaning if you provide this information and the executive committee has follow-up questions or clarifications as we draft, these do not go into the public record, but this is just for the drafting process. Once you post a comment, it does actually go through screening before it is publicly posted. So you don't expect it to go instantly, but with a little bit of lag time, they will all go there. And the input website is really where everything goes in the record, and we as the executive committee really draw and develop the FSTs from that record of community input. So next slide, please. So the previous few slides were about new focus science topic proposal ideas, that website. This one is if you want to look at what has already been proposed. They're listed in reverse chronological order. Everything from May 12th is the rolled over FSTs. That means FSTs that weren't selected in the previous cycles. And so you can read through each of those and comment. And so you have the opportunity to see if there's an idea that's thematically linked to an idea you already have. You can add comments to any of those or clarify any of the points that are made there, or continue a conversation about what that FST could potentially be. So I think that concludes. So back to you, Anthea. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So actually, once you do all this, so after July 3rd, basically we're going to meet again, and this is where the real work of the LPAG happens, is that we take all of this input and spend really several days sort of crafting together focus science topics. We actually sort them, group them, and we discuss them pretty seriously, and we craft these draft science, we draft the FSTs, and then we're gonna actually put them back out and get more community feedback. So before we turn anything to NASA, we're going to actually hand it back to the community, and you will be allowed to provide your feedback. And then we have to take everything back and once again redevelop them. And finally, we send the draft FSTs to headquarters and we see if they're accepted. They're certainly evaluated. And we repeat this process every other year. So if you want to, this is your chance to actually influence what gets taken or picked up in BROSES 2021 and 2022, perhaps longer. So we strongly encourage it. Now, what NASA does is once we've actually given them these draft sets, we hand it over to the NASA Heliophysics division. They then revise the draft FST, so they finalize them, and they do it by looking at what actually has been out there for the past 5 or 6 years. What have they already used? And they also look at their budget. So there's a lot of internal working that we're not completely privy to, but from that, the final FSTs are selected for the LWS Science and Rose's calls. And so this is your chance for you to influence future research opportunities. We really want you to give us, ask some questions. Sort of, I think with all of the new missions that are going up, Gold and Icon, this is our chance. It's a really exciting time. So please take advantage of this opportunity. Remember, July 3rd is the deadline, and here's the 2 websites. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Anthea, Rich, and Sibani for telling us about LWS FST process. We have got a couple of questions from the audience. One question is about if a similar topic has already been proposed as a FST, shall we still go ahead and comment on the importance?
I would say definitely provide us your comments. And in fact, if you can improve, I would say try to improve on what we have. Yes.
Okay, another related one. Can people use the comment box to express concerns about a proposed FST?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you, Anthea. And now we have a few more minutes for NSF questions and a couple of more highly voted questions for Nikki.
Okay, for NSF, can you talk about applying to the Graduate Research Fellowship Program in Aeronami versus magnetospheric physics? That is the number of awards, the type of projects accepted, etc. This is because MI coupling research could go either way, and a lot of folks don't know which one they should be applying to.
Yeah, thanks for that question. We encourage members of the graduate student community to participate in the GRFP program. It is a very prestigious and highly competitive program that exists across all of the disciplines within science. You can, if your proposal is on MI coupling, you can flag either magnetosphere or Aeronami, and it'll come to program officers within the section, and we'll participate in identifying reviewers for it. So there really isn't a difference in flagging either Aeronami or magnetospheric physics for participation in the GRFP program.
Thank you.
Another question, how can NSF get involved with GDC, and will there be opportunities for ground-based instruments?
Thank you for that question. We are actively engaged in discussions with Nikki on ways that the NSF-supported instruments and the NSF-supported investigators can collaborate in the whole of government, whole of geospace science approach to being able to tackle the big questions that come out of the solar and space physics decadal survey that are the motivations behind that, and we'll be outlining details as the process becomes more refined. Maybe if Nikki's on the line, I'll give her the opportunity to add on to that if she wants.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. So we are, as Mike said, very much committed to including our ground-based colleagues. I did my PhD in ground-based science. So I love it. But we are very committed to being able to bring all of those assets in to just better use them for all, as Mike said, for all of geospace, for all of heliophysics, really. We did have a call. We were able to support some of the ground-based solar observatories for a recent Parker Solar Probe perihelion pass. And so we are going to work very closely with Mike to see the best way that we can do that together, so everyone can really take part of all of these wonderful assets, not just GDC.
The next question is both to Mike and to Nikki, and it has to deal with the issue of implicit bias. How do you deal with implicit bias that's visible in the proposal review process? The panel evaluation seems not to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, thank you for that question. It is an area of concern for the review process that we have. NSF has adopted some new materials that we've included as part of our pre-panel briefing process to make the reviewers aware of implicit bias and some of the factors that can contribute to that issue, and try to address that. One of the other things that tends to make implicit bias worse is the rush to get everything done. Sometimes you fall back on the thinking fast as opposed to the thinking slow type of paradigm. So we're trying very hard to make sure that we allow enough time for adequate discussion and discussion of the merits of the proposal, so that we can do the best possible review to limit the impacts of implicit bias on the review process. Nikki?
Yeah, very, very similar. I noted Mona Kessel coming on, really taking over as our RNA lead, and extremely committed to removing this as much as possible. I think everybody recognizes it does happen, and slowing down the review panels, exactly as Mike said, giving more time. To be honest, doing things virtually is helping, because there isn't quite that rush. Because if you do need to do an extra couple of days, you can do an extra couple of days. And, God love you guys who have stuck with us, who've supposed to be on a 4-day review panel and they've gone 8 days because things have just taken longer. But really, again, giving those instructions at the beginning, we are looking forward to trying out dual anonymous, and actually then doing the comparison between what the results are with the dual anonymous, and then what the results are the moment you sort of pull back the curtain and let people see, would they have picked different ones if they'd known who the proposals were written by. So really just focusing on setting the ground rules. And if you see something, all of our panel officials now are really, it is really smacked home to them. If you see it, stop it. Don't let it go on. Immediately stop, reset, even if you tell everyone, go out and take a coffee break and come back and we're going to start this discussion again. And so, Mona's been really training our program officials to really go for that. And so we really are committed. And unfortunately, we know it happens. We're just not going to let people propagate it in our review panels.
Okay, so the next question will be for Mike and Alan. What are the guidelines for rapid grants in the context of coronavirus when there is a severe urgency with regard to availability of facilities?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I'm going to assume that the question is not directed towards research related to coronavirus spread and coronavirus modeling, which there is some activity there, but impacts of coronavirus on access to data or access to facilities. And the rapid structure remains intact as a mechanism for being able to address that. And the key in the rapid process is to reach out to the program officer, either Alan, myself, or Rob, and start the conversation on what the issue is and what the rapid process can do to address it from there.
All right, thank you. Regarding the NSF's and NASA's respectively stances and responses to some of the different social aspects going on currently, is there a consideration from NSF or NASA to really address the call for action for an anti-racist science community from the geoscientists of color, or any other type of social or organization stance, adopting those stances for some of the issues that we see occurring today?
Yeah, I'll go first, and then I'll allow Nikki the opportunity to respond from her perspective. So yes, I am aware of the open letter to the research community for the anti-racist actions there, and the I think order 9 specific calls that were made on the National Science Foundation to take action there. And we have just had our new NSF director brought on board, and in his opening statement, he has expressed the need for the foundation to work on efforts to increase the inclusivity of the community and move forward on that action there. I can't give you specific things that are going to be done to each of the items there, but we are aware of it at all levels of the organization, from the highest levels of the director down to the program officers and the support staff. And we're engaging in the conversations and trying to figure out the steps that we can do to do that going forward. As I mentioned in my introductory remarks, there are some programs that already exist within the National Science Foundation context that NSF includes, and the GeoPass and GOLDS program. And I would like to see members of our community being able to participate in these things as pathways to improving the diversity within the environment that we have. And I'll be participating in the discussion on Friday to hear what some of the ideas are that you guys have in the community, and see what we can do to be able to take actions to support those activities. Nikki, over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. So I did try and address some of it in my remarks. I think a lot of us are realizing just how much we didn't know. We sort of sit in our own privileged bubbles and don't really understand quite what other people go through. And so the first thing we did was foster a safe space for people in my organization, and then even beyond that in the science mission directorate at NASA, to be able to just voice concerns and share experiences, and a lot of those are very shocking, to put it mildly. So we are very committed in doing a better job. Talking about it as one thing. It's very important to have the conversations, to have those safe spaces. But clearly talking is not enough. And so, as I'd noted, Thomas Sabukin is pulling together a kind of tiger team at the Science Mission Directorate level. We all have different representatives to go out and look at what we can be doing better, to do more than just talk, and to voice support, but to really show support. I had put out a sort of Dear Community letter, I think 2 weeks ago, and I've had a tremendous response to that, with a lot of people who've actually had suggestions, who've said, hey, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing that? Have you thought about doing intern programs that are focused on institutions that don't maybe have the opportunities to go and work at NASA, or work at NSF, or work at NOAA? How do we better bring these things in? We're also looking at it's a passion of mine anyway, but it's just a crazy idea. You don't have to be a heliophysicist, but you've got this great idea. Send us a proposal. Let's see what we can do with your crazy idea. Those are often the ones that bear the most fruit. And so, but how do we reach into institutions that don't traditionally apply? And that is something that we really are focusing a lot of energy on. And so I encourage you, if you have ideas, share them. To me, there's no such thing as a crazy idea. Send me your ideas, and we will do our best to implement as many. Often we don't, it's hard for us to come up with the solutions when we're not the ones who are experiencing the problems. And so please reach out. You can, email me. I'm terribly easy to find, nicola.fox@nasa.gov. It's really easy. Send me an email. I will be very happy to hear to you. And again, thank you so much to everyone who's already sent ideas. We are already looking at everything you've sent and seeing the best way that we can start to try and implement things to better support and better offer inclusion into the things we do. But thank you to the community for stepping up so far.
Thank you, Nikki. We got another question for you, highly voted, regarding the dual anonymous proposals. Since we are a small community, so do you have any tips for how can we really make the proposal be more anonymous?
Yeah, it's actually a very challenging thing because there are a lot of people who are very, very focused in the research they do. And, you know, how do you make it anonymous if somebody knows that you're the only person on the planet that actually studies that particular thing? And so we are really looking at ways of changing the review panels so that you don't, number one, we don't have the same reviewers that are used to seeing, you know, a wonderful proposal that comes in from Sasha, and we're like, oh, we know it's her because she's proposed that 6 other times. So actually looking at mixing up the review panels as well as just anonymizing the proposals. You know, obviously there's no references, there's nothing that tells you what that particular proposer has done before, but there are often things that make it very easy to identify the person, or at least the research group that is proposing. And so I don't have a crisp answer other than saying that it's something that is we're taking this one step further than just whipping the, you know, the name off the front of the proposal and the references off the back. How do you really make sure that the people on the panel cannot identify that just because they happen to have the same expertise? And so it is something we are really focusing on, looking not only at anonymizing the proposals, but making sure that the review panels are qualified to review the proposals, but not the same old people who, or the same wonderful people, I shouldn't say old, the same wonderful people that we've had, same experienced people that we've had many times that would easily be able to join the dots and know who those proposers are. Another way of doing it, of course, is making sure that the panel chairs do not allow that to happen. So that if, you know, if somebody really, again, creating a safe space, if somebody says, hey, I actually know who this proposal's by, then they need to excuse themselves from that. And really enforcing those rules is the only way we can really have anonymous proposals, dual anonymous proposals, I think.
Thank you, Nikki. Due to the time limit, the online Q&A session is now closed.
All right, thank you so much. We are now at the end of our slightly extended town hall. Thanks to everyone, especially to Sasha and Andy for moderating these questions. I'd like to just remind you again that input to the student posters, very much appreciated. Just click on the a box that says make comments. These will be open for 2 more weeks. The students will really benefit from comments, I'm sure. Also a reminder about our diversity, equity, and inclusion workshop that's going to go on Friday that will extend the conversations that we've been having here. And a big thank you for everyone from NSF and NASA for helping us turn this into a little mini panel session right at the end. I think everyone's benefited from that. And with that, I will just urge you to, for the remainder of the week, participate, share your science, enjoy each other as you can virtually. And we hope that while this is a great experience, that we'll actually all be together in person in 2021 in Colorado Springs. So I hope to be hearing from a number of you while we're online and in the various workshops. And I think I'll close it out there.